has lost its way. What kind of coward would do something that cold-blooded? Someone who hides behind a mask.
I used to think that my life was a tragedy. But now I realize it's a comedy.
With a budget of $70 million. This movie has been one of the most successful projects in the cinematography world, not only from a selling and commercial standpoint, but from the way this movie presents different problematics which can be highly relatable all around the globe. The director of this film was Todd Phillips, an American screenwriter, actor, producer, and director who has directed such films as The Hangover, Project X, and A Star is Born. He won the Golden Globe for the Best Motion Picture, Comedy, or Musical in 2010 for The Hangover.
God, I'm full of so much gratitude right now.
The other protagonist behind the scenes, as on the screen, is Joaquin Phoenix, an American actor and Oscar winner who had a tough childhood, with many obstacles and challenges which were decisive for his preparation process when playing the Joker. The Joker movie shows us the Gotham City of the 70s, at a time when the city is going through many social, political, and economic difficulties. The idea for this Gotham City was constructed based on the New York of the 80s, where there was a lot of poverty, inequality, chaos, protests, and non-conformity, which made the city a very dangerous place. This setting is used to show us the story of Arthur Fleck, an aspiring comedian who suffers from a mental illness which is treated superficially and negligently by the city government, in addition to a very difficult economic situation that he has to go through, in which he has to support his mother without any friends or family alongside with him to support him. The problem in this story begins when the city, being in its darkest period in history, must make budget cuts in different facilities all around the city, denying Arthur the support he needs to treat his medical condition. This leads to an Arthur, who's in addition to living in a difficult situation, losing his only support, and what kept him sane. From now on, the story tries to show us how slowly Arthur loses his sanity and takes another step towards madness. We can see how the indifference of society contributes for Arthur to go from being an ordinary citizen to being a murderer, and at the same time to be a kind of symbol for Gotham City. Despite the fact that this film deals with an apparently comical character, the reality is different. It displays the story of a character who lives a tragedy, after being stomped on by society to a point where the consequences of his experiences are irreversible, driving him to an unstable state of mind that will have an impact on him and on the people that surround him. The impressive and strong aspect of this film is the variety of themes it deals with. It shows us the situations and problems that not only remain in history, but are also visible in our society. One of these problems that we can see is meritocracy, shown through social inequality, both highly regarded situations all around the world, as it occurs in a lot of countries, making them tremendously relatable topics, since they both make clear how a person who has very few opportunities and who suffers from different medical conditions which do not allow him to have the privilege that people of the wealthy class do, even after being abandoned by the state, who's got no job opportunities and thus went through a real tough childhood, is expected to react the same way as the people who always had everything handed to them. The first example in which the situations and concepts are present and could be seen is in a scene where Arthur Fleck and Bruce Wayne have a conversation in which Arthur goes to the Wayne mansion with the thought that he was Thomas Wayne's son, thanks to something his mother told him. Once he arrived, he saw a little kid and started talking to him. "I'm Bruce," the kid said. In that moment, Arthur smiled as if he had found his brother, thinking that they were equals in a sense, although this wasn't true. In the scene, it is possible to see how Arthur and Bruce are talking through a gate, which symbolizes how they belong to two opposite lifestyles. In this scene, the example is present not only on how these characters are each other counterparts, but on how Bruce is a wealthy child who has everything he needs without ever having to make an effort, while Arthur is an elderly adult who suffers from a series of different problems on a daily basis, who never had anything, and the moment he got something, it was taken from him by society. This situation reflects meritocracy and the inequality among social classes, taking advantage of these two characters who are kind of opposites. But now we can see how they both could be considered adverse in a different sense, other than the rivalry of superhero and villain that they hold.
I'm Bruce.
Bruce. I'm Arthur. That's better.
Bruce! Get away from that man.
It's okay, I'm a good guy.
What are you doing? Who are you?
I'm here to see Mr. Wayne.
Well, you shouldn't be speaking to his son.
Another situations where we can see both these concepts present in the film is in the theater scenes, since outside of the auditorium there are people from the lower class with few job opportunities protesting in search of a change, not only for their labor opportunities, but for their quality of life in general. And inside the theater are all the wealthy families of the city giving themselves the luxury of watching a film surrounded by wealth, which the rest of the city cannot be given due to the lack of opportunities and the difference between classes. In this same chapter of the movie, there is another reference for inequality among social classes, in the moment when Arthur Fleck and Thomas Wayne both encounter in the bathroom, after Arthur sneaked into the theater to find Thomas and tell him he was his son, although this wasn't true. Thomas starts to get annoyed by those comments and Arthur ends up getting beat up by him. Here we can see the difference between their respective social classes and how the rich always ends up stepping on the poor. An important aspect of this example is the double side of Thomas Wayne, since in the public eye he tries to show the cleanest, most respectful and honorary side of him, while in reality he's a scumbag who fired and got rid of Arthur's mother after she started having mental issues when she worked for him, and didn't even provide her the support she needed. He also beat Arthur up in the bathroom where no one could see him. Therefore, his public image wouldn't be affected by this. This double-sided aspect makes the reference to a lot of politicians and people who live under the public eye, who often have these behaviors where all they care about is how they are looked at and pretend to be someone they're not.
Touch my son again, I'll fucking kill you.
A scene where social inequality is present notoriously in the movie is in the couple of scenes where Arthur goes to the child's hospital to do an act as a clown for the kids, and in the middle of the act he accidentally drops a gun he was carrying that his mate Randall had given him for safety regarding the state of the Gotham City crime-wise. After dropping the gun, he received a call from his boss, Hoyt, who found out about the gun incident and fired him. Right after this, Arthur took the subway to go home. He was still wearing his clown costume, and all of a sudden, a group of three gentlemen who worked for Thomas Wayne started laughing at Arthur and mocking him, since he couldn't stop laughing thanks to the condition he had, making reference to how these three well-dressed well-paid workers think that they are superior to the rest. Then they started beating Arthur up on the subway until Arthur decides to take the gun and shoot them to their death, referring to how the lower classes look for change and won't allow for them to be stepped on by the high class. An important thing to say about this example is the fact that if those workers would have killed Arthur on the subway, no one would have cared at all. While as the three murdered were the three high-class Thomas Wayne's workers, they were announcing the news all over the city the following couple of weeks.
Wait, please. I love this job.
Arthur, I need to know why you brought a gun into a kid's hospital.
It's a prop. It's part of my act now.
That's bullshit! Bullshit! What kind of clown carries a fucking gun? Besides, Randall told me you tried to buy a 38 off him last week.
Randall told
You're
you
a
that?
fuck up, Arthur. And a liar. You're fired.
Finally, both the concepts meritocracy and social inequality could be seen in other projects and movies that try to reference and critique the world we live in. A movie where these aspects could be seen would be Parasite, a movie from 2019 from the director Bong Joon-ho. This movie takes place in South Korea, though it could be placed in different places all around the globe, as it references the difference between social classes, which is a very current topic around the world. It presents a poor family which lives in very bad conditions and can't afford paying some of the basic needs. And on the other side, there's a rich family that lives surrounded by luxuries and that's got barely any idea of the reality that the poor families must live under. Here, the social inequality is present in various situations, like when the poor family takes over the house of the rich while they're out. Here we can see how much of a difference there is among social classes. Another moment where it is possible to see this inequality and meritocracy is on the conflict among both poor families who are taking advantage of the rich family, trying to take everything they can from them and fighting to death for it, while the rich don't even notice what they've got, since that lifestyle has blinded them to a point where they fire people for the smallest of things, showing not only how they really don't know how to appreciate what they have, while the poor appreciate everything that they can get from them. Taking this into account, it is possible to conclude that The Joker is a film that uses fictitious situations and scenarios which are used to show us a reflection of the undeniable reality in which we live in, where both concepts, meritocracy and social inequality, are highly regarded problematics. All the events are narrated from the own experience of a man who hasn't had any privilege or opportunity and who, on the contrary, could be considered as the victim of an indifferent system and society, which suffers from the superiority of the government and the upper class, which is a very current issue all over the world. I do recommend this film because it gives us an idea of what is happening in the world without the need to focus on a single country, since it presents situations with which many people